getting the paper, I will go ahead and start. My name is Francie St. Just.
And Marvin Samuel.
Alejandro Freitas.
Connor Malloy.
Junso Pan.
Okay, so we are the capstone team that's working on the Advocates for Human Rights project. And so I want to start just to give you guys a little background of our negotiation process to get to this final document. And it was fairly easy just because, as I told you guys, the first class, before we went to meet with the advocates, we had a meeting with Kathy Fennelly, which prepared us to kind of like tease out the questions that would help us understand exactly what this project meant and what did the advocate want, what they wanted out of this project. And so I think that meeting really helped make our jobs easier because we knew what questions to ask. And so basically the objective of our project is to examine welcome initiatives in other countries and in other communities to analyze their effectiveness. And so if you look at the objective, we'll be doing this by looking at the achieved outcomes, stated objective, and actual impact on immigrant communities. And so this project is part of a bigger project by the Advocates for Human Rights, One Voice Minnesota. And the One Voice Minnesota project basically assesses how well the state welcomed new immigrants. And interestingly enough, that was started because of a project that Kathy Fennelly was involved with. And so that's why she has been like a really, really great asset to our team. And so we'll be doing comparative policy research, just looking at other immigrant initiatives. And our team hopes to look at initiatives that have been initiated by government and community-based organizations, and so we will compare based on the immigrant community, and try to provide some best practices on how effective they've been, and if it's applicable to the state of Minnesota, because there could be a really great project in Florida, but Florida has a higher Hispanic population, and so that may not be exactly applicable to the state of Minnesota. And so that's a little bit of background on what our project will include. Next, Alejandra will break down the task of exactly how we will be doing that.
Okay, so if you look at our scope of work, we have identified what a specific task will be as student consultants throughout the project. So first we will conduct the literature review on welcome initiatives, and this will guide our research. And we wanted to understand a bit more about the scope and the definition of what a welcoming initiative actually is, the history behind it, and also we wanted to secure and trends and practices regarding welcome initiatives. Additionally, we also wanted to look at how the welcome initiatives that have started and are currently being implemented in the state of Minnesota, and with this also background on demographics on the different immigrant groups that are currently living in the state of Minnesota and are being targeted by these initiatives. So then we also conduct interviews with immigration policy experts and people currently working in these types of programs. So after gathering all this preliminary information, we're going to start to look at other welcome initiatives in other parts of the U.S. and also in other parts of the world. We'll try to generate a list of at least 4 to 5 initiatives, and we'll study them extensively. This will be in coordination with the Advocates for Human Rights staff, and this list of 4 to 5 welcome initiatives will be pre-approved by them as well. We'll start the data collection process with research and also with phone interviews with people implementing the initiatives, with participants currently participating in the initiatives, and also with community leaders involved in immigration in these communities. So also we'll generate a set of criterion and also a set of a list of indicators to assess the welcome initiatives and measure how effectively are they being and the impact they're having on the immigrant communities. We have planned this process, the gathering information process, to last for at least the first 10 weeks of the semester and plan to end by at least the beginning of April. So after we narrow down our list to 4 or 5 specific programs, we'll also start generating our report. Our final report will be based on our findings, and this would include background and demographics on the immigrant communities that are being targeted by these initiatives, and the reason why the initiatives got started in the first place. It will include goal and expectations of the initiatives, and the outcomes, if any, as documented by the people starting the initiatives, as documented by the participants, and as documented by the community itself. Then we'll also show, and through this we'll show an analysis of what is being effective and what is not of the approach, the drawbacks and benefits of this model. So we plan for the writing process to last for about 9 weeks, and we plan on being done with the writing process by the beginning of May. So finally, we'll present our findings to the Advocates of Human Rights staff, and our findings will, our final deliverables will be our final report and one final oral presentation to the Advocates of Human Rights staff scheduled sometime during the first 2 weeks of May.
So I want to discuss how we set our schedule, because we didn't know a lot about this issue coming in. We're starting with the literature review, and during the literature review, we're going to be examining possible initiatives, like we've talked about, selecting 4 or 5. We're going to take the research done during the during the literature review to start to mine possible options for those 4 to 5 welcoming initiatives that we're going to focus on. We're also going to be thinking of different questions that we're going to be asking in our interviews based on the research we do and the ways that other people explore welcoming initiatives. From the advocates, we get the human rights criteria, but what we're going to have to develop during this interview, you'll see starting here we have in week 6, we're going to develop the assessment criteria that we're going to use to assess those initiatives. And in week 7, we're going to begin the assessment and the writing process, even though that's not part of, even though we won't be finished with our research. Emily, who many of us had for qualitative research methods, came and talked to our capstone preparation workshop and talked about qualitative, and she said, you need to make sure you start that stuff before. You don't need to have all of your data and then start going through it. Once you start, at this point in week 6, we're going to start actually talking to people. So right away we're going to want to get pen to paper and get all that stuff done. And as Alejandra said, ideally that by the end of April we're going to be able to have our final package.
Thank you, Alejandra, Garcia, and Connor for giving an overview of the project. As a refugee myself, I'm so excited about this program, and I feel like I have a lot to give out to the program. I am going to talk about the client responsibilities a little bit, probably most of them, if not all. By participating in the program, the client has agreed to select Emily Good as our primary client, point of contact. She has been working with us. I think we had worked with her during the first meeting. The client will also provide clear instructions and expectations for our capstone team. The client would provide feedback bi-weekly to our team to see how our progress is going as we work on the project. The capstone team will, the client will also provide our team with needed information as it relates to scheduling. So as Connor was saying earlier, we will have help from the client too to kind of like structure that schedule as we go forward. The client will attend our meetings, but probably not all of them, but as necessary. So the client has also agreed to be flexible with our team as we schedule to kind of like help us accommodate our schedule. And some, perhaps somebody might have a different schedule, and the client will kind of be flexible in that area to try to help us not to like have us all together at the same time. Be flexible in that way. The client is willing to share organizations' information with us, and also too to facilitate our results. Meaning, if we are going in a different direction, the client would be there actually to kind of like guide us and make sure we're going right. The client has accepted to kind of reimburse our team as for out-of-pocket expenses. The client will initiate, at least with the team, every 2 weeks if we are not communicating with the client, so the client will at least kind of like call us and find out what's going on. The client is expected to attend our final presentation, which will be determined later. And the client is also accepted to give us our final evaluation as we finish the project. And now I'm going to turn it on to
Thank you, thank you, Mavi. Now I'm going to talk about consultant responsibility first. We, the student consultants, collectively agreed to these things. First, we designated Kana Molloy as the primary student contact to facilitate the active communication with the client. Second, we will provide client with the deliverables as described above, as mentioned by Alejandra. It will be both paper and electronic form. Also, we will give a final presentation to the client. Also, we will provide the client with a project update at least every 2 weeks. And we will return all email messages or phone calls from the client within 2 days. Lastly, we will ask specific questions of the client to make the client is on track with expectations. Next, I would like to explain the joint responsibilities between the client and the student consultant. First, we will return all email messages or phone calls from each other within 2 days. Second, we will be on time for all project meetings.
And classes.
Third, we should be professional each other. The client will treat the students as professionals. On the other hand, the students will treat the project as a professional business or engagement. The students also will receive a copy of the evaluation of the project completed by the clients, including evaluation of processes, deliverables. Thank you.
Alright, so we just wanted to give you guys an overview of what our project entailed and what we have outlined. And when we turned this in, our client only had 3 very minimal comments to make. And so we came to an agreement pretty quickly. And if you guys have any questions based on what we have informed you about our project, this will be good. I hope that means we did a good job.
Give it a few minutes. Give it a few minutes. I just want to make a few comments just to clarify some things. If you ask your client to evaluate your project, that's for your team. The evaluation we send out is confidential. It's not to the team. So just to clarify that, they will get an evaluation from us that's part of your grade. And then the other thing is, just to clarify some wording, it may have been just accidental. We have few capstone requirements at the Humphrey School, but one of them does require you, your client, and your faculty doing a formal presentation. That is required. So, just to make that clear in case anybody wasn't certain about that.
Okay.
Any questions for this team?
I noticed you have one more group member that's not listed on the MOA. I'm just wondering how that onboarding of that additional group member may have affected some of your documentation and program planning and relationship with the client.
So this was the initial MOA and SOW that was sent to them back in November. And so after the first class, we sent an email updating the comments, updating the document to include the comments that they made, and we also introduced our team member and sent a short bio since he was not in the initial meeting.
And since it's a working professional, so he had it pretty well prepared to go, so when we forwarded it to them, they had all the information back.
Good. That was a good question. Anyone else? Well, thank you, team.